Okay, so this is going to be the last video in the series, presumably, unless I've combined the series, we will see. Sorry for any background noise, there's a guy doing some maintenance. I am at Pieskowa Skała, which is one of the final castles that I'm going to see on this trip. They say there's like 25 castles on the Eagle's Nest Trail. It's not quite right. Technically there are 25 castles, including ruins and maybe palaces, but a lot of them are quite far off the trail itself. I think on this trip I'll probably see about 10, but they're the ones, let's say they're the famous ones. And overall this trip has been pretty cool. I've got this last day now in Ojców National Park, and I'm looking forward to it. It's hopefully going to be a more chilled day, more relaxed day, where I just take things at a pace and then hopefully, without any issues, find a nice bus back to Kraków at the end. Because, being honest, doing the last 30 kilometers or so between here and Kraków seems a bit pointless. You know, you're not really going through the same scenery that you are on the rest of the trail, and there are no more castles on the way, so, you know. But it hasn't just been about the castles. This trip has been about so many things, and I'm sure if you've watched the series, you will have a good idea of all the crazy things I encountered on the way. But for now, enjoy the rest of the video, and see you again soon. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. With this channel, I travel across the country, I bring you the culture, and I show you just how amazing Poland is. So I invite you on my journey. If you want to see more, I have Facebook and Instagram profiles, which you will find links to in the description below. And if you want to really help out, you can turn to my Patreon or Patronite accounts, again in the description. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Do zobaczenia. This is day 7, the final day of my journey along the Eagle's Nest Trail. Yesterday, I reached Pieskowa Skała with the castle above me, and almost nothing left in my legs. I had walked as far as I could, but the climb would have to wait. So this morning, I was going back to finish what I had started. A short journey on a local bus spared me from retracting the twisting road on foot. Ahead of me were Pieskowa Skała, Ojców National Park, and the final caves and castles of the trail. And somewhere beyond them, Kraków. There was just the small matter of climbing all those steps first. Pieskowa Skała was one of the castles I had most looked forward to seeing. Unlike many of the Eagle's Nests, this was not simply a collection of walls and towers left to decay amongst the limestone. It had survived. A fortress was recorded here as early as 1315, and during the following century, it was strengthened by Casimir the Great as part of the defensive system protecting the route between Kraków and Silesia. In 1377, the castle passed to the Szafraniec family, who controlled it for more than 200 years. Some members of the family appear to have interpreted noble responsibility rather creatively. Piotr Szafraniec acquired a reputation for alchemy and black magic, while Krzysztof Szafraniec reportedly used the castle as a base for attacking merchants along the very road it was supposed to protect. His enthusiasm for alternative taxation eventually led to his execution in Kraków in 1484. During the 16th century, the medieval fortress was transformed into an elegant Renaissance residence. Arcaded galleries surrounded the courtyard, while a viewing loggia looked out across
the Prantnik Valley. The result was something completely different from the castles I had visited earlier on the trail. Ogrodzenets impressed through its sheer scale and destruction. Pieskowa Skała had survived well enough to show that what one of these castles could become when it was allowed to remain a home. I arrived before opening and bought the combined ticket, which gave me access to everything inside. What appeared from outside to be a relatively compact castle proved to contain a surprisingly extensive museum. The original household furnishings have not survived, but the castle is now a branch of Wawel Royal Castle, displaying works from its collections. Its rooms contain European paintings, sculpture, furniture, tapestries, clocks, and decorative objects spanning several centuries. There is also an exhibition devoted to the history of Pieskowa Skała itself. After walking through a chain of Polish castles, I had not expected the final complete one to contain an entire gallery of English painting. The collection ranges from portraits to landscapes, and for a brief moment this Renaissance castle above a Polish limestone valley began to feel suspiciously like an English country house. Beneath the castle chapel, the crypt contains 4 extraordinary 17th century tin sarcophagi, belonging to Adam Hieronym Sieniawski and his 3 sons. Originally created for the family mausoleum at Brzeziany near Lviv, each lid bears a life-size figure of the deceased dressed as a warrior. They are among the most striking objects inside the castle and certainly managed to comprehensively outgun the cocks. Pieskowa Skała also has its own legend. Dorotka, the daughter of a castle lord, supposedly fell in love with a poor lute player. Her father responded with a measured restraint expected of a medieval aristocrat and imprisoned her in one of the towers. According to the story, Dorotka's faithful dog climbed the rock carrying scraps of food to keep her alive. The castle's name, meaning something close to Dog's Rock, is sometimes linked to that loyal animal. History offers other explanations for the name. The legend, naturally, offers a much better one. After spending around 2 hours exploring the castle, I stopped for an early lunch overlooking the valley. Pieskowa Skała had been unfinished business from the previous evening. Now, finally, I could return to the Red Trail and begin its last proper section. The path carried me through the wooded hills above the Prantnik Valley. After 7 days of walking and a morning already involving a substantial number of steps, my legs were making their opinions increasingly difficult to ignore. Along the way, I passed Grodzisko, a place whose defensive history stretches back even further than the castles of Casimir the Great. An early medieval fortified settlement once stood here, while the site later became associated with Blessed Salomea, a 13th century Polish princess who abandoned courtly life, became a Poor Clare nun, and sought religious solitude within this landscape. It was a small and peaceful place, so I kept my visit brief before continuing along the trail. Not far beyond Grodzisko, I found a bench overlooking the Prantnik Valley. Somewhere below were the final castle, the caves, and the heart of Ojców National Park. And after 7 days of forests, villages, limestone hills, and ruined fortresses, I had reached the landscape I had been walking towards. I felt triumphant. I was also beginning to realize how little of the journey remained. Ojców is Poland's smallish national park, covering a little over 21 square kilometers. but very little about the scenery feels small. Great limestone faces rise above the valley, shaped over millions of years by water dissolving the ancient Jurassic rock. More than 400 caves have been discovered inside the park, while the River Prantnik wides below forested slopes and narrow cliffs. The trail had been revealing this geology piece by piece since Częstochowa. Here, it finally delivered the grand finale. After descending into the valley, I stopped to rest beside a small waterside shrine. My mind may have reached the final destination, but my legs had apparently not yet received the same triumphant memo. Reaching Ojców and exploring it were going to be two separate challenges. Nearby stood the chapel on the water, a small wooden chapel supported above the River Prantnik. A popular story claims it was built over the water in response to a Russian prohibition on constructing new churches on local land. If they could not build on the ground, they would simply build on the river instead. Whether or not the explanation is quite that tidy, the chapel remains a wonderfully Polish response to an inconvenient rule. From there, I continued towards Ojców Castle. This required another climb, because the castle had clearly decided that 7 days of walking had left me dangerously underexposed to stairs. The castle was built during the 14th century by Casimir the Great. It is traditionally connected with his father, Władysław Łokietek, who is said to have hidden in one of the nearby caves while escaping his enemies. The name Ojców is often interpreted as a reference to the king's father and the refuge that helped protect him. Only fragments of the medieval castle survive today, including its entrance gate, tower, and sections of wall. It lacks the scale of Ogrodzieniec and the completeness of Pieskowa Skała, but its position above the valley gives it an atmosphere of its own. This was also the final castle of my journey. The thread that began at Olsztyn on day 1 had followed me across the entire trail. Castles built, strengthened, or connected by the defensive ambitions of Casimir the Great. Now at Ojców, I had walked the chain to its final link. After leaving the castle, I stopped at the tourist information office with one important practical question. How was I going to leave? Phone signal inside the valley was unreliable, and information about the buses was not especially clear. The woman at the office explained where I could find a bus to Kraków and recommended that I follow the green trail towards the dark cave. This proved to be excellent advice. Instead of passing through the busy central area filled with restaurants and visitors, the green trail returned me to the quieter side of the park. It also returned me to steps. Many, many steps. Dark Cave sits high above the valley, and reaching it was probably the toughest climb of the day. By this point, my legs had already carried me to 2 castles, and they were beginning to regard each new staircase as a personal act of hostility. The cave would only open with a minimum number of visitors. For a while, it appeared that I might be the only person interested. So I waited for somebody else to arrive. Eventually, I saw movement on the path. I had hoped for one additional visitor. Ojców provided an entire school group. Dark Cave is one of the most important prehistoric sites in Poland. Archaeological discoveries show that Neanderthals used it as a shelter and hunting base around 120,000 years ago. Researchers have uncovered stone tools, animal bones, and remains connected with a Neanderthal child. After spending a week among medieval ruins, I was suddenly standing in a place whose human history stretched back unimaginably further. The castles had occupied this land for centuries. People had been sheltering inside its caves for more than 100,000 years. After returning to the valley, I continued towards Kraków Gate, one of Ojcow's most recognizable limestone formations. The great pillars of rock stand on either side of the path like a natural entrance to the valley. According to tradition, the old route from Ojców to Kraków once passed between them. Walking through it felt like crossing another threshold. Only one major attraction remained: Łokietek Cave. Unfortunately, it remained some distance uphill. By this stage, the path felt like the final straw for my legs. I had already completed the toughest climb of the day, but this was the last cave, the last legend, and the last real objective of this entire journey. I had not walked this far to abandon it now. I managed to join what appeared to be one of the final tours of the day, together with another couple. The cave takes its name from Władysław Łokietek, who supposedly hid here while being pursued by his enemies. According to the legend, a spider spun its web across the cave entrance. When Łokietek's pursuers saw the unbroken web, they assumed nobody could be hiding inside and continued their search elsewhere. A future king of Poland had been saved by a spider, and considerably more successfully than most of us are helped by discovering one in the house. The route through the cave included several tight passages, and at one point I had to remove my backpack and scrape my way between the limestone walls. This appeared to cause some concern amongst the other villagers. After more than 160 kilometers of hiking, the final physical obstacle of the Eagle's Nest Trail was apparently squeezing a heavily loaded Englishman through a hole in a cave. Before leaving, I asked the guide about the bus to Kraków. Thankfully, she gave me exactly the same directions as the woman at the tourist office. 2 independent witnesses had now confirmed both the existence of the bus and the approximate location where I might find it. All I had to do was get there. And as I made my way out of the park, the emotions of the day began to catch up with me. I was exhausted but proud. Ojców had been even more dramatic than I expected, and it felt like the destination the trail deserved. At the same time, each castle and cave I completed had removed one more objective from the list. For 7 days, each morning had begun with another stretch of trail waiting ahead of me. Now there was nothing left except finding the bus. There was no ceremonial finish line, no grand sign announcing that I had completed the Eagle's Nest Trail. Instead, it ended somewhere between the cave, the edge of the park, and a bus stop I had located by asking strangers for directions. It was untidy, practical, and entirely honest. The bus eventually carried me into Kraków. From the city centre, I tried to catch another bus towards my accommodation, but it passed without stopping. So I began walking once again. On the way, I found CK Browar, a brew pub hidden beneath one of Krakow's historic buildings. After 7 days on the trail, I sat down and I ordered potato pancakes with goulash, together with a tasting board of 5 different beers. It was not the finish I had planned, but perhaps it was the right one. I had carried my dad's hat with me from Częstochowa to Kraków, past the castles he would have loved. Across every difficult kilometre and into the final valley. So I raised a glass to him. The journey was over, but he had made it with me.